Welcome to Off the Page, the show where we talk with Colorado authors to get the story behind the story. My name is Stacy McKenzie, a librarian here at Mamie Dowd Eisenhower Public Library in Broomfield. I am so happy to have Charlotte Havey here today, author of the book Shep, the Turnpike Dog. Charlotte, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm so excited to talk about this book because it's such a great book for animal lovers. We're such great animal lovers here. Charlotte, before we start talking about your book, I want to know, are you a full-time writer?
Actually, no. This is a part-time job that I do. I am a partner in our production company, Havey Productions, and as such, I am the CFO, and I also do the transcription for the scripts.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of important work. Is this what you've always done? Is this what you've done for a career?
Yeah, we have been in business since 1979, so 35 years, and yeah.
Terrific. So tell me a little bit more about Havey Productions and what they do.
Okay. It is a film production company, family business. Jim Havey's my husband, and we just 2 years ago included our daughter on the staff, Alicia Havey. And we have another partner in the business named Nathan Church, and we have a studio in Lodo near Coors Field, and we do documentary films on Colorado history.
And we've got one of them here, of course, of Broomfield. Tell me a little bit about this documentary.
Okay. In 2010, Broomfield, the county and city, turned 50 years old, and we were hired to do a production for their big gala celebrating the anniversary. And actually doing research for this film is when I first learned about Shep.
What made you decide to write a book about Shep?
Well, I am a dog lover myself, and it just struck a chord with me about this amazing stray dog that gets adopted and lives in a toll booth for 14 years. And it just stuck with me, and I retired from another career. I was a preschool director for 4 years. Along with these other jobs that I had.
Yeah.
And I decided I needed something to do, and so no one had written a children's story about Shep. There's articles, newspaper articles, but I thought, well, I could do that.
Oh, yes.
So I did.
You did wonderfully. So let's talk about Shep. Charlotte, tell me why Shep was a special dog.
I think the fact that he was a stray and homeless, and the way I spin it is that every dog, every stray animal would love a loving home, you know, and so the fact that he got adopted by the toll booth workers and adopted by everyone that drove that highway, you know, the turnpike between Denver and Boulder. Back in the day, this took place in he showed up around 1952 in the toll booth and lived there until 1964. So there are so many people that know Shep, or somebody's mother drove that turnpike every day and have heard about Shep. So then I had the privilege of meeting Jackie Ainley Conley, who is the Depot Museum curator, and I got to go through her files and see all the pictures of Shep and the stories about Shep, and it just ignited this goal of mine even more for me to start to write the story.
And you showed me earlier some newspaper clippings that someone had kept on Shep. How important was it for you to find those newspaper clippings? In this digital age, that's the only documents you have sometimes.
Yeah, that we did. Actually, there's CDOT took pictures of the toll booth and Shep and the toll booth workers, and the Boulder paper has run some articles about Shep, and so that's the research I was referring to, you know, just learning what a popular mascot this dog was.
And full circle, the Enterprise has published a story about you, about Shep, and so that is available. We've got a newsprint copy right here, but it's available online, so people can read that and see a little bit more about you and about Shep. Charlotte, in this book, what part of Shep's story did you write?
Actually, I cover the whole time that he lived, from his discovery at the toll booth to when he passes away. I added a beginning and an end just because I needed it to tug at your heart a little bit more. So I added a part about a child playing in a grandma's basement, and he finds an old worn dog collar, and he runs upstairs to grandma and says, "What's this about? Does it have a story?" And she says, "Yes, it does," and ends up taking the boy to the Depot Museum and shows him Shep's grave that was relocated there in 2009. At first he was buried along the Highway 36, and they changed the configuration of the road, and Shep's grave had to be moved to a safe location, and the whole town came together, the whole Broomfield community, county, everybody came together to make that happen. And so that's his final resting place now, which is a perfect draw to the museum. And yeah.
So this is a children's book, but we deal with Shep passing away in that. What were your struggles with writing that, and what made you decide to go with the direction you did?
This is a great story, because when I started writing the book, it was from the point of view of Dr. Clyde Bruner, who was the veterinarian in Broomfield that donated his services all of Shep's life, putting Shep to sleep. And Shep going up to heaven and waking up in heaven and realizing that he was a dog and he had a story to tell. And I ran that by a few people, and they said, "This is way too dark." I would close the book before I read the second page to my child, and so revision. So after several other drafts, I came up with kind of a different concept, you know, with the grandma and the collar and that sort of thing. Yeah.
And so that's a lesson for new writers about feedback and letting people get a taste of what you've got and finding out about that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, the book has just wonderful illustrations, heartwarming pictures of Shep, and it is illustrated. Tell me about those illustrations.
Okay. I like to say the book was kind of a family affair. In our family, we set New Year's goals every year, and when I decided to take on this project, my New Year's goal for 3 years was to get this published. And so my son, Nathan, had a friend who was a law clerk, illustrator wannabe, and her first attempt too, and her name's Renee Gregory, and she actually collaborated with me from afar through email, because she was in Alaska and here I am in Colorado, but she did a marvelous job for me. Yeah.
It's really beautifully done. You decided to write the book in a poetic verse. Did you always decide to write it that way, and how did you come to that final conclusion?
That's a great question, and no, it wasn't. It started out to be more of a report format and quite boring. And actually, I on March 15th last year, I got this brainstorm that it might be better as a poem. And so it just took off. It took off. And shortly after that, I attended a writer's workshop at Chautauqua Park in Boulder. It's called Big Sur, first one I've ever been to. And we had critique groups that watched over us and listened to our stories. And at that point, it was a poem, and it was so well received. I got, lots of positive feedback, so that made me even concentrate more on word choice and rhythm, and so that's how that happened.
Who do you think is the target audience for this book? Is it just for children?
Actually, I've been reading to several elementary grade levels, and it seems to work for every grade level. There seems to be some sort of connection between animals and people, and maybe even losing a pet, because Shep does die in the story. And it also has a draw for grandmas or grandparents or parents to read it to their child, because it's just this connection, and it's a point in history. It's a point in Colorado history. So it kind of connects from that aspect too.
When I think about it as children learning about history, they can learn about something they understand about some of that history. So I think that's a wonderful take on the point in history you mentioned, and also being an animal lover. Now you have your own dog. Teddy. Tell me about Teddy, and how did having Teddy contribute to your writing process?
Okay, well, we'll go back just a little bit.
Sure.
We had a pug named Charlie for 11 years that we just lost on August 15th this past year. And he was just my special buddy. So I wasn't going to get another dog for a while. I needed to just recover from Charlie and all that. Next thing I know, I think within 3 weeks, we had adopted a golden doodle named Teddy. And a golden doodle is a golden retriever and a poodle mix. And we got a mini, so this guy is only supposed to be between 24 and 30 pounds. But he's very agile and very athletic. Most recently, we found him on the middle of the dining room table.
That's exciting.
Yes, and he also likes heights, so he sleeps on the back of the couch. But he is just a joy, and he's 10 months old now, and so we walk every day because a tired puppy is a good puppy.
Yes.
And so he, just his antics and Charlie's antics too, I think that just touched my heart. The unconditional love that an animal will give you. They always are in good moods, no matter what your mood is. And I could just relate that to how Shep must have felt when he was adopted and was so loved by so many people.
And you were a teacher too. How did being a teacher for small children help you with the book?
I started out as a classroom volunteer in my children's school, South Lakewood Elementary. Then I was a paraprofessional, and I got this idea that I might want to teach. And so I actually went back to college. I graduated from college when I was 54 years old, and I got a job at South Lakewood being a gifted and talented teacher. So I got to be like a one-room schoolhouse teacher, kindergarten through 6th grade, and I did reading and writing. I loved it. It was awesome. And then I taught 2nd grade for a year, and then we built a home in Westcliff, and they have just a little newspaper, not even a stoplight in that community. It's a beautiful valley. But there was an ad for a preschool director, and I thought, well, I'll just apply for that, and I got the job.
There you go.
So I did that for 4 years.
Wow. How did all of those experiences with the little ones help you to write this book?
I think I connect with children in a special way. It's easy for me to tell stories and be silly, and I think that has something to do with it.
Yes.
There's like a magnetism that I have. I couldn't go to the grocery store in Westcliff because they would come running up to me and say, "Mrs. Havey," and grab my knees, and it's very touching.
That's what it's about, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
yeah. That's what we like. We like them to like us. Charlotte, for aspiring writers, tell us about your process. Maybe you could help some people.
I typed on a computer. I was telling this to my elementary students yesterday, and so I could just say, "Save draft 1." Save draft 2, and then I could review the drafts easily. I can't imagine writing a book out by hand in this day and age. And there were many revisions. This was a 3.5-year project for me. So, word choice, and I would actually have to sit down and do nothing else but write. Just clear my desk, clear my mind, and say, "You are going to write today for a couple of hours at least." And sometimes that would, I'd get so into it, it was 4 hours before I even looked up, so that's kind of the process that happened for me.
So it did take work and focus, and it just doesn't all just fall into place every time.
No. And then the illustrator fell in love and moved to Sweden.
Oh.
So then our communication was even further, continent to continent, and so we started Skyping. And so she could actually hold up the illustrations and show me, and she chose watercolor, which this is not by the computer. She painted them. And so it was, tedious and a long process. But
and edits and revisions to that mean all starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Wow, so there's a lot of technology involved with this little book here.
Yeah.
Wonderful. When people read this book, Charlotte, what message would you like them to take away with them?
It's a time in history, Colorado history. it tugs at your heart about how people can love animals so much and animals can love people back. And I'd also want to guarantee that Shep's legacy lives on.
Could Shep's story happen today?
I think it probably happens all the time. You know, I'm sure. I went to the Dumb Friends League between Charlie and Teddy, and I could have adopted 150 dogs, you know, because it was so sad to me that they didn't have a home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a website. What can people find when they visit your website?
They can find an event tab listing all the upcoming events. There is a tab about Shep. There are critiques of the book from people. And there's information about me. I am a Colorado native. I was born in Greeley. So that sort of thing.
And if someone is interested in having you come read the book to their group, you mentioned you read to groups. Can they contact you through that website?
Yes.
Great, wonderful. And really important, again, with the modern technology that we have, that Shep would have never gotten to experience in his life, Shep has a Facebook page.
Yes.
And that is Shep, the Turnpike Dog, is how we find that page.
Yeah, I believe it's Broomfield Turnpike Dog.
Oh,
yeah.
Shep, Broomfield Turnpike Dog. Okay, so we can all find that. And what types of things are on Shep's page?
People visiting the graves, photographs, photographs of children, discovering Shep's grave. And the grave is located next to the museum. Okay. The museum does not charge an entry fee, so you could make a day of going through the museum and seeing all the actual photographs of Shep and then going and visiting his grave.
If a person is interested in learning more about Shep, what can they do?
I would say, once again, visit the museum, visit his Facebook page. I even have a tab on my website about Shep.
Charlotte, what is next for you? Do you have another book project?
I have several ideas floating around. I have a manuscript started called Life Through Charlie's Paws. And I need to just make sure I'm recovered from losing him before I finish that one. And then I was walking Teddy in the neighborhood, and a lady came out to exclaim over Teddy and how cute he was, and a very large black cat walked up. And I said, "Who's this?" And she said, "It's Jax with 2 X's.
Oh.
And I said, "Well, he looks well fed." And she said, "Jax disappeared in February and was gone for 45 days. And they mourned him. They thought he was gone forever. Late one night, they hear this meowing, and it's Jax, who came back, very scruffy, thin, but he came home." So that got me going about where did he go for 45 days. I could make such a story about Jax is back.
I love that.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody, especially children, gets tired of animal and pet stories. What is it about animals that we just are drawn to, and especially children?
I'm pretty sure it's the unconditional love that animals give us. They are always in a good mood. Yeah. They just are so happy to see us. They want to be with us all the time. They love us, I think that has something to do with it.
And they need us. They need us, that's one. Let's talk a little bit about Havey Productions. Exciting stuff being a film production company. Are there more projects in the works for Havey Production?
Yes, thank you for asking. We are working on a water film right now called The Great Divide, and it's about Colorado water. It should be released in 2015. Okay. We're just now in the scripting process and the traveling around the state photographing. So it's pretty exciting.
Water's talked about a lot here in Colorado. Why did you decide it needed a documentary?
It's a subject that we all need to take a look at, and the timing is just about perfect right now because all these people moving to the Front Range is putting a real strain on our resource, and we have to collaborate and work together, West, western slope, eastern slope, in order to find the solutions that we can use to, make this all work for us. Because we need water.
Yeah. That's it. Charlotte, I'm going to spring another question on you about when you've been reading this book to children, what's one of the best comments you've got back from the kids?
At South Lakewood yesterday, we had a question and answer period, and I asked them, I said, okay, you can either ask a question, give me a compliment, or make a connection. And they came up with brilliant things, like perhaps the toll booth worker was lonely too. And Shep filled the need for the toll booth worker as much as the toll booth worker helped the dog.
Wow.
This was a little tiny person,
Yeah.
Stacy. Yeah, I thought that was amazing. And then, of course, it triggered all these stories about losing a pet and having to put a pet down. And so what you got to be gentle and take it easy with that kind of thought. And so we talked about how lucky those animals were and the people were, the kids were, to have known the pet or cared for the pet and lived with the pet, loved the pet. So like that. Yeah.
People are going to think this is a book about a doggy. It is so much more. And I thank you so much, Charlotte, for coming and sharing this story with us. Somebody needed to write it, and so thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to thank Charlotte Havey for being on the show today and bringing us her book, Shep, the Turnpike Dog. Check your library for this and other books that we've talked about on the show, and join us next time for more on Off the Page.